So before and after. Look at the detail of this. What's up, boys and girls? It's your boy Melike. It's been a while since I uploaded an editing tutorial. Remember back to the first episode how I said I use dodging and burning to do skin retouching? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to teach you today. There are several ways to skin a cat, meaning there are several ways to do dodging and burning. Everybody does it slightly differently, but they all have one common theme, and that is to increase and decrease exposure in highlights and shadow areas to smoothen out the skin. Picture an egg, right? An egg looks really smooth because when the light hits the surface of the egg, the shadows fall off nicely like a gradient. And that's exactly how we're going to achieve smooth skin. By increasing and decreasing shadows, we're softening the transition between highlights and shadows, creating a nice gradient across these transitions. It's important to note that when I'm dodging and burning, I'm using a pressure sensitive type equipment, such as the Wacom tablet. But if you're using a MacBook, there is hope for you, as Inklet has made a stylus which effectively turns your trackpad into a Wacom tablet. Now, I know in the previous episode, I showed you guys the technique of using frequency separation to do skin retouching. So you must be thinking, why am I now doing dodging and burning? There are key differences between a frequency separated image and a dodge and burn image. Frequency separation tends to leave a very porcelain fake look to the skin, whereas dodging and burning has more control in how the textures are manipulated, leaving a much more natural look and therefore a higher quality portrait. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we have an image of Christy taken from the Good Shot Mate Mastodon trip. I've already removed some of the distractions such as skin imperfections or hair using the healing brush tool. Now we want to create two layers, one called the dodge and one called the burn layer. What dodge does is it increases the exposure of the image, and what burn does is it decreases the exposure of the image. From here on out, that is what I mean when I refer to dodge and burn. Let's look at the area here. I want to create a smooth gradient between the highlights to the shadow area by dodging and burning the highlights and shadows. So let's set up a dodge and burn layer. What we're going to do here is we're going to go to adjustment layers, curves. Then we're going to bring this up to dodge the entire image. Control I to invert the mask, and we'll call this dodge. Next, I'm going to create another curves adjustment layer, but this time I'm going to burn the image. Again, Control I to invert the mask, and I'm going to rename this burn. Then I'm going to group this, and we're going to call it local dodge and burn. It's really hard to distinguish where to dodge and burn, so let's create a few layers to assist us in identifying areas where we need to dodge and burn. First, let's create an empty layer. Then we're going to go Shift Backspace. I want to select 50% gray and click OK. Next, we're going to change the blending mode to color, and then I'm going to create another curves adjustment layer, bump up the highlights and bring down the shadows. Then I'm going to group these two and call it the assist. So now that that's all set up, we go into dodging and burning. The general rule is the path of least resistance. So if I have a highlighter area and there's a whole bunch of shadow spots, then my aim is to dodge those spots to bring it back up. Equally, if there's some highlighter spots in the shadow areas, then I want to darken those areas by burning them. First, I gotta adjust my brush settings. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here, change it to hardness 0, and then we're gonna go into brush settings, shape dynamics, turn on control, and put it on pen pressure, minimum diameter 30%. Then we've got to go to transfer, tick that, and smoothing. If you don't find the brush settings menu, you could go up here and go window, brush settings, and it will bring up the menu. Once that's done, I'm going to go up here and set the flow percentage between 1 to 5%. So here I'm going to have that 3%, just so we could take our time with it and be a bit more precise. Now I'm going to go to the mask of the dodge layer, set my pen size with the brackets. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, just so I could get an overall picture. Because once you go into the pixel detail, it's a bit too much. And I'm just gonna go over the areas to smoothen out the transition between the highlights to the shadowed areas. Now you could use dodging to remove some wrinkles. For instance, on here, I don't want to blow it away completely, so I'm just going to go over lightly. Now you notice I keep switching back from dodge and burn layers. One tip is I shortcut bind switching layers, so I'm switching up and down on this, and I'm changing pen size on the bottom too. That way I could just cycle through back and forth using the shortcut keys rather than clicking. So let's see how far we've come. I've done a very quick job here, so don't judge me. I will go into a bit more afterwards, but for now I want to see what's the difference so far. So let's go from before and after. Already looks a lot nicer because we're removing like very subtle transitions between the shadow areas, and we're smoothing it out very nicely. Notice the eye bags as well. So here. You see why people dread for dodging and burning, because it takes so long. Here's a quick hack I'm going to show you, and you're going to thank me later. So say we want to focus on this area here, around her lips. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and create a curves adjustment layer. I am going to create a dodge like I usually do. Control I to invert that mask. Let's name this dodge again. I can get it. Okay. Now we're going to go to the mask. Set the flow to whatever you like. I'm going to put mine at 50 and just punch it around that area. Next thing you're going to say is, wow, that looks horrendous. But hang on, just give me a sec. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the dodge layer, right click, blending options, and we're going to use blend diff. I do intend to do another tutorial on just luminosity blending and stuff like that, but for the interim, I'm just going to quickly show you how this works. So basically, if I hold Alt and click on this right arrow, I'm telling Photoshop to only apply whatever this layer is to the highlighted areas. Likewise, if I alt click on the left arrow of the highlight triangle, I'm just telling it to only apply to the shadow areas, and then we can favor it with opacity if it's too much. So looking at this area, and that is how you do it quicker. So I'm going to continue on, fast forward, and then I'm going to jump into further details. Now you'll notice I'm going down to the pixel level for the nose, just because this is the rounded edge where a lot of the details actually show up, like whether it's crinkles or the pores. So I'm going a bit more detailed into removing all the highlighted spots and the dimples and stuff. So I'm just burning highlights and I am dodging shadows. Have a look how far we've come. Much better. Notice how the details are still retained. That's kind of what we want. Now you can also use it for fixing up the lips. So I'm just going to go in and dodge some of the areas, even out the shadows and the highlights. Next, we're going to look at the eyes. So with the eyes, I'll leave a link below explaining in further detail from f-stoppers, but basically wherever the catch light is, you brighten up the spot where the opposite of the catch light is. So in this case, it'll be here. And normally this part is dark because you've got the eyelashes covering it. Now, it's important to note that you got to leave this edge here a bit darker, otherwise it just looks very unnatural. Another trick to bring out the eyes is to actually just go Control Shift Alt E. It'll create a layer, and then what we'll do is we'll go other, high pass, and we're going to sharpen it. Next, we're going to go overlay, and then we're going to create a mask. Control I to invert that mask, and then I'm going to set the flow to 100%. Going to bring that detail in. Now the other thing we look at is also the eyebrows, so let's just make it a bit more full by really just burning the areas where it's coming through as skin. I'm also going to go into the veins of the eyes and just lightly go over it so it's not as obvious. Right, I think we got it in a pretty good spot, so that's before and this is after. Alright, so we're going to move on to global dodging and burning. Now basically what we try to do with global dodging and burning is we try to add a bit more dimensionality by adding shadows to, say, around a cheekbone or around here, or for example increasing the highlights around here and around the chin area. And setting it up is basically exactly the same. So we create a dodge layer and we create a burn curves adjustment layer. Control I to invert and mask. Burn. Now I'm going to group this so I don't get confused and call this global dodge and burn. I'm going to increase the size, and again, like I said, we're going to focus on areas where we're trying to add a bit more dimensions. Around Christy's face, usually around the lips as well. Probably not this side. Add a bit more to the eyes. Then we go to the lips and we're going to add a bit more glossiness to it. So we get added to the shadows of the hair as well to really make the hair pop. Likewise, we could dodge the hair. And of course you can use global dodging and burning to really just contrast someone as well from the background. So what I do is I create another burn curve, call it burn background. And I'm just going to give the model a bit more focus by darkening the background. Notice I only do these bits here at the back. The foreground leaves I'm going to leave relatively bright. Now here's another tip: if you press the / you can see where you've applied the mask. Before, after. One last check is I usually chuck a threshold layer just to check where the highlighted areas are, and obviously her cheek is very highlighted and her nose, so let's just bring that back a little bit on her nose. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done. Let's have a look at what it looks like. So before and after. Look at the detail of this. So I quickly did a frequency separation of the image and this is what it turned out. Now compare this to the dodge and burn. See, it's much more natural. The skin texture is a lot more porcelain looking on the frequency separation versus the dodging and burning. So that's basically dodging and burning. Let me know in the comments section below if there's further questions you want to ask me. And I'll try and get them answered next video. And as always, if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications. And as always, if you're not following me already on Instagram, it is @_mellow.k. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.